Tony, in regards to the defensive changes, of course, under expected performance out of this defense, and then changes made, it seems as though that starting at the top with Ryan Day, that they've been very forthcoming about the changes. Of course, they're not going to be openly critical, but in regards to the duties being switched from Kerry Coombs to Matt Barnes, in regards to preparation and play calling on game day, Kerry Coombs spoke more openly about it this week in his new and different role. Kind of go take us through what he had to say and your interpretation of.
Well, the interpretation of can go a lot of different ways because people have different interpretations of what his future is after hearing him talk yesterday. But it was a simple question. Hey, Kerry, how's the transition going? How has it gone for you? And then I think it was 3.5 minutes of him just talking about how this is the most difficult part of his coaching career, but then said, if this is as difficult as it gets, then I've had a pretty good life and I've had a pretty good career, which to this point I would agree with. And the thing that struck me most is, it sucks for him and he isn't happy with it and it's still raw. But this is a guy who has told his players for decades, hey, stick it out, keep fighting. A guy that gets benched, hey man, keep practicing. You will have an opportunity. And just because you get benched today doesn't mean you're not going to play next week. And then he said, if I were to just leave after having this taken away from me, if I were to just leave, then I would have been lying to every single player I've ever told, hey, be tough, stick it out. And so this is one of those things where he lived what he was preaching for all of these years. And you could tell it was still very raw to him. It still hurts, but he allowed himself like one day of sorrow, and even then said he wasn't going to let anybody see it on his face, and because he doesn't want any sympathy. But I think after watching and listening to that whole thing, I came away thinking I expect him back. Other people came away thinking they expect him completely gone because he only talked about the fighting for this season. And so I'm interested to see what Steve thinks, what you think, what when you guys saw that, because to me, I came away thinking he'd be back, but now I'm hearing other people talk and I don't know what to think anymore.
Yeah, I was very impressed with how he handled himself. He came right out and addressed it honestly and was very emphatic, as he always is as a public speaker, and reiterated again, if this is the worst thing that happens to him in his coaching career, then he's had a really good coaching career because this is something that he can survive. Obviously, he's making a lot of money as the defensive coordinator at Ohio State, I believe as much as $1.4 million a year, which is pretty good pay, and they're probably not going to cut his pay, even though he's not going to be calling games, theoretically anytime soon. My guess is what they'll probably try and do is upgrade Barnes to a co-coordinator role after the season and pay him commensurate with what they're paying Kerry Coombs and attack it like that. Seems to be the best thing. He's a great recruiter for Ohio State. And to listen to Ryan Day, he says it's a collaborative effort throughout the week, and they establish what they want to do in down and distance and against certain personnel groupings. And so in the game, it just flows, that everything is just kind of predetermined, and Barnes, may have to make a tough call here and there. But in general, it seems like they are in lockstep on how they want to approach calling the defense at this point, and at least that's how Day is portraying it. Kerry Coombs seemed to establish that he's an Ohio guy, an Ohio State guy, loves Ohio State, and, you'll have to pull Ohio State out of his dead cold hands is how I kind of took it, and to borrow the old Gordon Gee playoff line. But, I guess anything could happen, and I guess the jury is out. Let's see how the next 6 games play out. If they get gashed down the stretch by Michigan State, which is putting up huge numbers offensively right now against some, questionable opponents, just as Ohio State is. Let's just see down the stretch how this goes. I don't know that Penn State without Clifford, or although Clifford ought to be back here in the next few weeks, you would think, or Michigan are going to put up a huge number against Ohio State, but or Iowa for that matter. But if the defense doesn't seem to continue this progress, then they may have a mind to just blow the whole thing up and hire 4 new defensive coaches altogether. And if that's how it goes, that's how it goes. I don't know. I don't have an inclination. I don't think even Ryan Day knows what tomorrow is going to bring or tomorrow holds. But so far, so good. Last probably, well, you wouldn't even really count Akron, but the last 2 games have been very good defensively. So I think they're on a good trajectory, getting those young guys experience. They've settled on a core of guys to play, which I think was important. And if what Day is saying is true, that the staff seems to be in lockstep right now in how they approach opposing offenses, then it sounds like you got a pretty good game plan for the second half of the season.
I would also add that, do we even know if Kerry Coombs is under contract next year? Because deals are usually like two years for coaches, for assistants. So
yeah, and this is second year back. So
they may be able to get him for, $750 or something like that, or whatever they want to do. But Steve, I want to ask you, because I've been doing this for, a decade, going to the press conferences, and I was there for all of the awkward Gene Smith, Jim Trussell stuff, the Urban Meyer hiring, the Luke Fickell kind of awkward year, and then the handing over to Ryan Day. Like, yesterday's session was one of the top 5, like, you'll remember forever. I think it was Combs left and the room was pretty silent, and then it started to buzz, and it was like, that was unlike anything I'd ever seen before.
Yeah, it was very raw, very human, very emotional, just as he is, wears his feelings on his sleeves. And Jared Smalley, toward the end, it's on Tony's site, it's on our site, the video clips. Really, if you're an Ohio State fan, you need to take 25 minutes and go watch it, because I think it really strikes at the heart of who he is as a person, as a football coach. But toward the end, Jared Smalley from Channel 4 asked him, do you have any kind of grudging respect for Ryan Day as a former head coach, having to make such a difficult call in the moment? And Combs kind of had to bite his lip, like, so you want me to praise the guy who demoted me, but it wasn't even really framed that way. It was just more like, can you appreciate the situation that Ryan Day was in? And Kerry said, I really wish you hadn't asked me that, because it is and I think he said that kind of tongue in cheek or in jest. I mean, the early return is that Ryan Day made the right call, so, I mean, and yet let's grade it when they're playing a top 20 offense, not, some of these, Maryland without 2 of its best receivers, as it turned out, or Rutgers, which, station to station, 6 yards is a good play, So I think let's get a little deeper into this before we start, crowning anybody as the savior of the Ohio State defense just yet. But so far, it looks like he made the right call, and Jared, I think, put him on the spot. And I agree with you, Tony. I think this was raw human emotion, honesty. And this is a guy you can win with, I think, and in the proper role. And I think securing players, coaching players, Sunday through Friday, and then letting them play on Saturday, kind of getting out of their way, maybe. That might be his role.
One of the aspects of what we do is that people want us to get into the hearts and minds of individuals and determine, would they take this job, or what do they really mean when they say this? Which I don't revel in, because I'm not the person to try to make those assumptions and so forth. But it sounds like Kerry Coombs, being the person that he is, from that standpoint, being pretty transparent for a coach, especially, that the only thing that I'll take from what I saw, and I did not see the entire 25 minutes, but we'll watch it, is that sounds like, he knows what, if this just happened to him then who am I to conjecture about what my future could be? It's really not up to me. So it's better for me just to focus on the next 6 games and the remainder of this season and do my very best. And this is where the focus should be anyway. But, you know, everyone always has their career aspirations and path in mind. But he seems as though he's really thinking, okay, I'm just going to lay it on the line, do the very best job that I can in this role, but it's up to other people to decide. So who am I to conjecture about my future?
Well, I'll just say I think his biggest market value remains at Ohio State because he has recruited. I mean, in the 2 or 3 years he was gone, they didn't get any good secondary players. Sorry to, hit you between the eyes with the reality there. They got good secondary players, but now that he's back, they got 2 or 3 national top 100 players. Burke's playing as a freshman. J.K. Johnson is another national top 50 or top 100 guy that they got. I think, he's been a little dinged up and hadn't played as a freshman, but they're starting to recruit secondary players again. So if you got somebody that can bring in national top 100 secondary players, that guy's worth his weight in gold, because that position, along with defensive end, along with quarterback, and in this offense, wide receiver and running back, those are probably the 3 or 4 most important positions on the field. So he has tremendous value at Ohio State, just his worth as a recruiter. Now, if he were to leave Ohio State out of spite or out of pride or whatever it might be on his own accord after this season, Luke Fickell would hire him at Cincinnati in about 6 minutes, I would think, to do something. Because of his history as the Coleraine head coach down Cincinnati. I think he was at University of Cincinnati prior to coming to Ohio State. And so if there was an opening at Cincinnati, I would think that he would end up there pretty quickly. But beyond that, where would he go? What would he do? He's the most money he can make in this profession as an assistant coach is at Ohio State right now. So to me, if it's a dollars and cents thing, it probably isn't. He's probably independently wealthy, I would think, after 10 years at this level. But, it is what it is. And, you want to be appreciated. You want to be, and I think Day has gone a long way out of his way in the last 7 days to say, we do appreciate this guy. Gave him the game ball after the game on Saturday. Talked him up again in the press conference yesterday. So I think that that Day has done everything he can to smooth this thing over. Not that he really needed to, because, heavy is the crown or the head that sits the crown or whatever, whatever the hell that thing is. But got a tough job there, So sometimes you gotta crack a few eggs to make the omelet, and that's what Ryan Day had to do.
It seems like Kerry Coombs' success as a recruiter, and the reason for part of that was on display at that news conference. That's probably one of the reasons he's able to connect with 17 and 18-year-olds.
And their parents.
Yeah, absolutely.